This is the lesson for 3-10, which is the elimination method. What you're going to do today is you are going to be given two equations and you need to eliminate or cancel out one of the variables. You're going to be given opposites. So the first step that you want to do is add together your equations going down. You want to add together your x's with your x's, your y's with your y's, and your plain numbers with your plain numbers. Then you're going to solve for the variable. You're going to sub that back into the original equation and solve for the other variable, and then do your checks. So let's take a look at this first one. Notice that in this first one, you have opposites. You have a 2x and a negative 2x. Those are opposites. The negative and positive of a number are opposites. So the first step says, add your equations together going down. When we add these together going down, those x's cancel out. So 7y plus 3y is 10y. 18 plus 2 is 20. That's your first step, all right? Your first step is just adding together going down. Your second step says to solve that one-step equation. So divide by 10, divide by 10. Those 10s cancel out. Always do top divided by bottom. 20 divided by 10 is 2. That is your second step. The third step says choose an equation. It doesn't matter which one you choose, all right? You're going to take this y equals 2, either sub it into here or here for y before you go and solve. Whichever one looks easier to you, that's the one that you should sub into. I like trying to avoid negatives if at all possible. I like to try and avoid minus signs if all possible. So I'm actually going to sub this one back into that top equation. So instead of 7 times 2, or sorry, instead of 7 times y, I'm going to have 7 times 2 in that equation. That is your third step. Your fourth step is to actually solve that equation. So 7 times 2 is 14. Bring everything else down that you didn't use yet, and you're left with a two-step equation. Always in a two-step equation, get rid of the plus whatever or minus whatever first. So minus 14, divide by 2's, and you get x equals 2. Your last step, your fifth step, is to do your check. We want to check our coordinates. We got x equals 2 and we got y equals 2. So subbing them back into both of the original equations. Remember that when you do your check, it has to check in both equations. If it only checks in one equation, it's not the right answer. So instead of 2 times x, I have 2 times 2. Instead of 7 times y, I have 7 times 2. You could type this part right into the calculator if you wanted to. 2 times 2 is 4, plus 7 times 2 is 14. 4 plus 14 gives you 18, so 18 equals 18. It checks. For the other one, negative 2 times 2 plus 3 times 2 instead of 3 times y. Again, you could type that part right into the calculator, or you could do it out by hand. Negative 4 plus 6. Negative 4 plus 6 is 2, so 2 equals 2. It checks. Again, remember, it has to check in both equations, or you did something wrong. Go back and fix it. Take a look at the next one. In this next one, we have opposites this time with our y's. We have a negative 5y and a positive 5y. So the first step is to add going down. When we add going down, those y's cancel out. 2x plus 3x is 5x. Negative 9 plus 24 is 15. Our second step says to solve that one-step equation. This just says 5 times x. The opposite of times is to divide. So divide by 5 and divide by 5. 15 divided by 5 is 3. There's one of our answers. The next step says to take that answer of 3 and sub it in for x. So you're going to sub it into here or here. Always make sure that you're subbing it into the right letter. You have your choice. Does the top equation look easier or does the bottom? To me, the top equation looks harder because you have a negative sign and a minus sign. So I'm going to sub it into the bottom equation. So instead of 3 times x, I'm going to take my answer of 3 and sub it in. 3 times 3 plus 5y equals 24. Step number 4 says solve that equation. So we want to do 3 times 3. 3 times 3 is 9. Bring everything else down that you didn't use yet. Now it just becomes a 2-step equation. -9 minus 9. So 5y equals 15. Divide by 5, divide by 5, and you get y equals 3. So when we go to do our check, which is our 5th and final step, this time the answer was x equals 3 and y equals 3. And I know that the previous answer, the two answers were the same. That doesn't always happen, all right? Just a coincidence. But we want to sub them back in to both of the original equations. Remember that it has to check in both equations to be correct. So instead of 2 times x, we have 2 times 3. Instead of 5 times y, we have 5 times 3 equals -9. You could type that part right into the calculator or do it by hand. 6 minus 15 is -9, so -9 equals -9. It checks. 3 times 3 instead of 3 times x. 5 times 3 instead of 5 times y. Type this part right into the calculator. 9 plus 15 is 24. 24 equals 24. It checks. Take a look at the next one. In this next one, they are trying to trick you. There's really a 1 in front of that x. The opposites that we have in this one are the 2 and the -2. Again, your first step is to add going down. When we add going down, that 2 and that -2 will cancel out. 4x plus 1x is 5x. 12 plus 13 is 25. So your first step is to add going down. Now you got to solve that equation. That says 5 times x. So we want to divide by 5 and divide by 5. Top divided by bottom, x equals 5. Now that you got one of your answers, you want to take that answer of 5, x equals 5, either sub it into here or here. Again, I try and avoid negatives. I try and avoid minus signs. So I'm going to sub it into the top equation. So instead of 4 times x, I'm going to sub in my 5 there. 4 times 5 plus 2y equals 12. The 4th step says to solve that equation. So I want to do 4 times 5. 4 times 5 is 20. Bring down everything else that I didn't use yet. So bring down my 2 plus 2y equals 12. Solve that equation. All this is a 2-step equation. So minus 20 and minus 20. So 2y equals -8. Divide by 2, divide by 2. We get y equals -4. The last part is to do your check. What are our answers? Our answers are x equals 5 and y equals -4. So this is your x, this is your y. We need to take those numbers and sub them both into the original equations. There's my 2 original equations. Instead of 4 times x, I have 4 times 5. Plus, instead of 2 times y, I have 2 times -4 equals -12. I can type this right into the calculator or do it out by hand, and you'd have 20 minus 8. 20 minus 8 is 12, so 12 equals 12. It checks. In the other equation, instead of x, I have 5. Instead of 2 times y, I have 2 times -4. -2 times -4 is a +8. So I really have 5 plus 8. 5 plus 8 is 13. 13 equals 13. It checks. Let's do another one. In this one, we have opposites with our y's. So the first step is to add going down. When we add going down, that +3 and that -3 y will cancel each other out. There's really a 1 in front of that x, so 2x plus 1x is 3x. 15 plus 3 is 18. The second step says to solve that equation. So divide by 3, divide by 3. 18 divided by 3 is 6. There's our first answer. Now that we have one of our answers, we need to take and sub that in, either into there or there. Again, I like to avoid minus signs and I like to avoid negative signs. So I'm going to sub it into the top equation. So instead of 2 times x, I'm going to have 2 times 6 plus 3y equals 15. Now it's just an equation that you need to solve for part 4. We need to multiply the 2 and the 6 together to be a 12. So we have just a 2-step equation now. Minus 12 to get that 3y all by itself. So 3y equals 3. Divide by 3, you get y equals 1. So when we go to do our last step, which is our check, we are checking 6, 1. 6, 1 is x and y. So when we go to check it, we need to sub it into both equations. So instead of 2 times x, I have 2 times 6. Instead of 3 times y, I have 3 times 1. You can type this part right into the calculator. So 12 plus 3. 12 plus 3 is 15. So 15 equals 15. It checks. Over here, we have 6 minus 3 times 1. 6 minus 3 if you're doing it by hand, or you could just type it into the calculator. And you get 3 equals 3. So our answers are 6 and 1. Let's do one more. All right, in this last one, we have a 6x and a negative 6x. Those are our opposites. So the first step is to add going down. When we add going down, those cancel out. 15y plus 4y is 19y. 3 plus negative 22 is negative 19. Divide by, oops. Our second step is to solve that equation. Divide by 19, divide by 19. Those cancel out. We get negative 1 as our answer. Step number 3. And again, if the boxes bother you, just ignore the boxes. All right, not really important what goes in each box, as long as you get the correct answers and check it. So now subbing it back in, I like the top equation a lot better. It doesn't have any negatives. So I'm going to have, instead of 15 times y, I have 15 times negative 1 when I go to sub it in. Step number 4 says solve it. So we got to multiply those together to be a negative 15. So I now have the 2-step equation, 6x minus 15 equals 3. So I want to do plus 15 and plus 15 to get the 6x all by itself. Divide by 6, you get x equals 3. So when you go to do the last step, which is your check, we are checking 3, negative 1. This is your x, this is your y. So subbing them into the original equations, negative 6x plus 4y equals negative 22. Subbing them into the original equations, we have 6 times 3. And we have 15 times negative 1. You could type this right into the calculator or do it out by hand. 18 minus 15 is 3. So 3 equals 3, it checks. Negative 6 times 3 instead of negative 6 times x. 4 times negative 1 instead of 4 times y. Type this into the calculator. Negative 18 minus 4. That does give us negative 22. And those check. So the moral of the story is you are adding going down. You always want to look for your opposites. When you have those opposites and you add going down, those will cancel out right away. Add going down. So like in this one, we have 6y equals negative 12 when we add going down, and then keep on solving it from there. We look at one more. You have opposites right here, 2 and negative 2. So when you add going down, those would cancel out. So we would have 1x plus 5x, which would give us 6x equals negative 18. And then we would solve it from there. But we want to add going down so one letter cancels out.